The first sound Ethan Cole heard was not a scream or an alarm. It was a timer, a soft, slow alien chime echoed through the vast throne hall, calm and polite, as if it were counting something unimportant. 17 o'clock. Ethan stood alone on a circular platform of living metal. The floor beneath his boots felt warm, almost like a heartbeat. The air smelled clean, sharp, and wrong. Everything here was too perfect, too silent. This place was not built for humans. He was a prisoner. Only 6 hours earlier, he had been an engineer aboard a damaged human cruiser, fixing power lines while the battle raged outside. Then the Queen's fleet arrived. Not guns, not missiles. Just control. Gravity failed. Engines died. His ship was pulled apart gently, like a toy taken from a child. He remembered hands grabbing him, cold and careful, as if he were fragile glass. Now he stood before the ruler of the alien empire. The alien queen sat upon her throne, tall and still, her body glowing with soft silver light. She looked carved from moonstone. Her eyes were large, dark, and ancient eyes that had seen stars born and die. Around her stood guards in black armor, their weapons humming with quiet power. One command from her, and Ethan would be gone. He swallowed hard, forcing his shaking hands to stay still. A voice entered his mind. It did not echo. It did not shout. It existed. Human Ethan Cole, the Queen said. You have 17 minutes. Ethan blinked. 17 minutes. For what? The Queen tilted her head slightly, studying him like a puzzle. To escape. For a moment, Ethan thought he had misunderstood. He laughed once, short and dry. There's nowhere to go, he said. You took my ship. This is your palace. Your guards are everywhere. The Queen did not argue. Instead, she raised one glowing hand. Behind Ethan, the massive doors of the throne hall opened without a sound. Beyond them stretched long corridors filled with dim blue light. Passageways split and curved in strange angles. Some moved slowly, like breathing lungs. A maze, if you are not free when the timer ends. The Queen said calmly, I will offer you something instead. Ethan's stomach tightened. What kind of offer? The Queen's eyes met his. Survival. The timer chimed again. 16:02. Ethan's heart began to race. This was not mercy. This was not kindness. This was a game, and humans were not meant to win games made by gods. He turned toward the open corridors. His legs felt heavy, but he forced them to move. As he stepped off the platform, he felt thousands of eyes watching him, guards, machines, sensors. And something deeper. The palace itself seemed aware of him. He started running. The moment he crossed the threshold, the doors slammed shut behind him. The sound echoed like a final warning. The corridor ahead shifted. Walls moved slightly, rearranging themselves. Symbols glowed along the surface, crawling like living things. Ethan ran harder. His breath grew loud in his ears. Each footstep echoed too long, too empty. He felt small. Very small. As he ran, memories invaded his mind. Earth. A blue planet seen through cracked ship windows. His sister waving goodbye before he joined the fleet. The smell of rain. Old music played too loud in tiny apartments. Humans were not warriors by nature. They were builders, fixers, dreamers. And now, he was running through the heart of an empire that had crushed worlds without effort. The walls whispered as he passed. Not in words, but in feelings. You will fail. Your kind always does. Ethan stumbled as the floor suddenly tilted. He slammed his shoulder into the wall, pain exploding through his arm. He cried out, teeth clenched, but forced himself back up. He did not stop. Because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant fear. Behind layers of metal and light, the alien queen watched his progress. Her expression did not change, but her attention was absolute. Most prisoners begged. Most ran until they collapsed. This one kept going. The timer continued its slow countdown. 12:47. Ethan did not know it yet, but the galaxy was holding its breath, because in 17 minutes, a human was about to remind an ancient empire of something it had forgotten. How dangerous hope could be. Ethan's boots echoed on the alien metal floor, but the sound was strange, sometimes delayed, sometimes swallowed entirely. The corridors stretched endlessly, twisting like the inside of a living creature. He knew he was running, but he had no idea if he was getting anywhere. Every turn seemed to lead to another identical hallway, but somehow each one felt different. Walls shimmering, ceilings bending, lights pulsing like hearts. He paused for a moment, chest heaving, and touched the walls. The metal was warm, almost alive. Symbols crawled beneath his fingers like tiny insects, glowing faintly before fading. He didn't understand them, but their message was clear. This place watches. It tests, it mocks. A whisper seemed to brush past his mind. Not words, feelings. You are small. You cannot escape. Ethan's stomach tightened. Fear tried to crush him. He had faced zero-gravity failures, plasma storms, alien attacks before. But this was a cage made of mind and space. Not walls. Not locks. But something that felt alive and patient, ready to fold him into it if he hesitated. He remembered the Queen's words. You have 17 minutes. She had given him time. And the corridors were her way of watching what a human would do. He ran again, faster. His boots skidded across the polished floor. One wrong step would throw him into a sharp metal edge, yet somehow he kept moving, guided by instinct and a stubborn pulse inside his chest. A sudden drop in gravity made him stumble. He slammed into a wall, pain bursting across his shoulder. A spray of blood stained the shimmering floor. His breathing came fast, ragged. But he refused to pause. Humans survived because they refused to stop. He thought of Earth, of his sister, laughing in the sunlight of the city, no longer safe. Of friends who had been lost to the war. Humans were fragile, yes. Too weak for a direct fight against the alien empire. But they were tenacious, unyielding, capable of refusing despair when everything said to surrender. Somewhere behind the walls, the Queen watched. She did not need to move. She did not need to speak. She simply observed. Every stumble, every falter, every heartbeat was a story. And she wanted to know if this human would crumble under pressure or do something unexpected. Ethan reached a corridor that seemed narrower than the others. The walls seemed to bend inward, whispering fear into him. Symbols slid along the metal like tiny crawling eyes. He felt them judge him. He felt them hope he would fail. And he did something no human, or perhaps no alien, expected. He laughed. Not a happy laugh. Not a triumphant one. But a stubborn laugh, raw and trembling. You think this scares me? He muttered aloud. The sound seemed absurd in the endless halls, but it gave him courage. His mind focused. Fear became fuel. Panic became movement. A door appeared ahead, glowing faintly. It seemed fragile, almost human-made compared to the surrounding corridors. He tore a small energy panel from the wall, sparks flying, and jammed it into the door. Metal groaned. A warning siren echoed briefly before the door slid open, revealing a chamber bathed in soft white light. Ethan fell inside, gasping, his hands burning from the electricity. He pressed his back against the wall, trying to calm his racing heart. The corridors behind him seemed to pulse angrily, as if disappointed he had passed this challenge. He realized something important then. The Queen didn't just want him to escape. She wanted to see what he would risk, what he would endure, what he would sacrifice. Every bruise, every spark, every heartbeat counted. The timer ticked. 11:03. Ethan straightened, determination rising. The halls were alive, but so was he. Humans were small, fragile, weak, but that made them unpredictable. They could fight when there was no reason. They could hope when there was no hope. And this human was not ready to give up, not now. Not ever. He pushed forward into the next corridor, ready to face whatever the Queen had created. Whatever test she had designed. Whatever trap the palace held. Because he knew one thing. Running was not enough. If he survived, it would be because he refused to obey the rules of this place. And somewhere deep in the throne hall, the Queen smiled faintly. This human might be interesting. Ethan pressed forward into the next chamber. It was bigger than any human building he had ever seen, wider than stadiums, taller than towers. Holographic projections floated in the air, showing planets, fleets, and cities. Stars blinked in the distance, burning brightly in alien skies. He stopped for a moment, breath catching in his throat. The images were not static. They moved, shifted, and told a story. Entire worlds had been destroyed. Fleets of ships exploded silently. Cities crumbled under weapons no human could hope to understand. This was the power of the alien empire. And it had been total. The Queen's voice echoed in his mind again. Softer this time, curious, almost patient. Do you see, human? My people have ruled for 10,000 years. We have destroyed everything in our path. No one has ever stopped us. Ethan swallowed, his chest tightening. He had seen destruction before. He had lived through battles that cost hundreds of lives. But this was scale beyond comprehension. His own species had barely survived against a fraction of this power. And yet, he felt something strange. He was not afraid. Then why bring me here? He asked aloud. His voice trembled, but his gaze did not leave the floating projections. Why show me this if you want me to escape? A pause. Then the Queen's voice, calm but heavy with meaning. Because I do not just rule. I observe. I watch for patterns. I see how species respond to power, to fear, to hopelessness. And humans are unpredictable. Ethan's heart beat faster. Unpredictable. That word felt heavy, dangerous, and somehow hopeful. The Queen stepped closer, or perhaps appeared closer. Her presence seemed to ripple across the room, bending the light around her. There were no guards, no weapons, only her. Her eyes, vast and ancient, seemed to look straight through him. In every vision of the future, she said softly, my empire survives. Unless humans exist, then everything changes. Ethan took a careful step forward. His instincts screamed to run, to hide, to escape. But something deeper inside him, the stubborn, unyielding part of being human, told him to listen. And you, the Queen continued, are the first human to reach this place willingly. Most surrender, most panic, most beg. But you, her voice was like a river flowing through time. You move forward. Ethan felt a mix of fear and anger rise in him. Fear for what the Queen could do in a single thought, and anger for the lives lost because of her empire. Yet beneath it all, there was a strange curiosity and awareness that maybe he had a chance, even if tiny. I don't understand, he said finally, his voice firmer. If you can destroy everything, why test me? Why care what I do? The Queen's gaze softened, almost imperceptibly. Because winning everything does not make one invincible. A ruler who cannot predict the unpredictable eventually falls. Ethan stared at the holograms again. He realized then that the escape was never about running. It was about choice. About showing something that the Queen had not yet seen in a human. Courage? Cleverness? Determination? Perhaps all of it. The timer blinked in his mind again. 6:41. He felt the weight of every second. Every step forward was a statement. Every breath a declaration that humans did not obey fear. Humans survive, he said quietly, almost to himself. Not because we are the strongest. Not because we are the smartest. but because we refuse to stop when everything says we should." The queen watched him, silent. Her empire had crushed hundreds of species. Machines had burned billions of lives to ash, and yet she was studying him as if he were the first human born with a spark. She could not predict. "You understand something about your kind," she said finally, voice echoing softly across the chamber. "You do not bend to certainty. You do not fear the impossible. You persist." Ethan took another step closer. His hands were bruised, his clothes torn, his body exhausted, but his heart raced with a fierce clarity. He understood now. The queen wanted to see if humans could survive where logic and power ruled everything. And humans did not survive by following rules. They survived by refusing to obey them. The timer ticked again. Less than 6 minutes remained. But Ethan no longer felt trapped, no longer felt powerless. He felt human. Vulnerable, yes, but alive. Defiant, determined. And in that realization, he understood the cruel truth of the queen's test. He might not escape her empire, but if he failed, he could still teach her something that no conqueror of 10,000 years had ever learned. Humans were not predictable. Humans were not weak. Humans could endure. Ethan smiled faintly. A bitter, stubborn smile. Whatever the queen wanted from him, she would get a human choice. Something she had never faced in her 10,000 years of conquest. And that choice would change everything. Ethan stepped deeper into the chamber, the holographic images shifting around him like living stars. Ships burned, cities fell, planets shattered. The scale of destruction was almost unbearable, yet he did not look away. He refused to. Every vision reminded him of what humans had survived: Earth lost, colonies abandoned, friends gone. And yet, here he was, alive, breathing, standing. The queen's voice entered his mind again, softer now, almost intimate. "Do you understand why I brought you here, human?" Ethan shook his head, though part of him already knew. "You want to see if I can escape. But more than that, you want to see what I will do when everything seems impossible." She was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, she appeared before him. Not in a doorway, not across the room. She was there. Her body seemed to ripple like liquid silver, and the soft glow of her skin bathed the entire chamber. Her guards were gone. Her weapons were gone. Nothing separated them. "You have survived what most would never endure," she said. "You have faced fear, pain, exhaustion, and yet you continue. Most humans would beg for life, plead for mercy, surrender to inevitability. But you—" She tilted her head, studying him. "You do not." Ethan's chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. His hands were cut and bruised from climbing walls and tearing power panels. His boots were scorched and worn. His shirt clung to his skin, soaked in sweat. He was exhausted in ways he had never imagined. And yet, there was a fire in his eyes that no pain could dim. The queen's voice softened. "I can end your suffering. I can give you life, safety, power. You could sit at my side, learn my ways, and live as no human has ever lived. You would be above your species, untouched by hunger, by war, by death. You could be my heir among humans." Ethan stared at her. Life, comfort, power, all things humans had dreamed of for millennia. And yet, he could feel something deep in his chest twist. His heart burned with a stubborn, dangerous thought. "And Earth?" he asked quietly. "What of the people I left behind? The ones who are gone?" The queen's gaze faltered. "Earth is lost. You know that. I can give you a place in the stars. But your world is gone." Ethan's hands clenched. His eyes burned. He thought of empty cities, burned-out colonies, rivers of ash. The humans who had fought, laughed, cried, and died. All gone. And the queen, for all her power, could not bring them back. "I don't want your offer," he said firmly, his voice low but steady. "I don't want comfort. I don't want power. I don't want life that comes without risk, without struggle, without meaning." The queen blinked. For the first time, she seemed almost startled. Her calm, unbreakable presence faltered for the smallest fraction of a heartbeat. "Then you will die," she said. Ethan smiled faintly, a bitter, stubborn smile. "Maybe," he said. "But I won't die because I ran. I won't die because I gave up. I'll die if I fall, yes, but at least I'll fall on my own terms." The timer ticked in the background. 3:12, 3 minutes left. Enough to make the choice that mattered. Ethan realized then that he understood the cruel beauty of the queen's test. It was not about survival, not about fleeing, not about strength. It was about choice, and humans. Humans survived because of choices, not power. Because they refused to surrender when everything said they should. Because even when beaten, even when broken, they kept moving. The queen studied him. She had faced thousands of species, billions of lives, countless wars. She had conquered, burned, ruled, and yet, here was one human who refused her offer, who refused certainty, who refused everything she promised. Her voice softened again. "You are unusual, human." Ethan nodded once. "I'm human. That's what we do." The hallway outside the chamber seemed to hum, as if the building itself was acknowledging the choice he had made. The timer continued to tick, unrelenting. Counting down the seconds to an ending, Ethan did not fear, because he understood something the queen had not expected. The greatest strength of humanity was not in what it gained, but in what it refused. And with that understanding, Ethan took a deep breath. The final moments of the timer would arrive, and he would meet them with a human heart, a heart that refused to surrender, a heart that refused to run, a heart that was entirely, stubbornly alive. The corridors outside the chamber seemed quieter now, though Ethan could feel the palace alive, watching his every step. Each footfall echoed like a heartbeat, reminding him of the timer's final seconds. 1:09, 1 minute and 9 seconds to go. He did not run. He did not look for escape. He simply stood, feeling the weight of the choice he had made pressing against his chest. The queen appeared before him again, her glow filling the chamber with soft silver light. No guards, no weapons. Only her. She had expected him to beg, to plead, to surrender. Instead, he faced her with tired eyes and a steady breath. "You could have chosen life," she said softly. "Power, safety, everything your species has ever dreamed of. And you refused." Ethan's hands shook slightly, but he did not lower them. "I am human," he said simply. "We survive because we refuse to give up. We survive because we keep moving when everything says we should stop. That is who we are." The queen tilted her head. Her expression was unreadable, yet Ethan could sense a ripple of something new in her curiosity, perhaps even respect. She had faced countless beings who cowered beneath her, who bowed before her, who obeyed without question. But him? She had never encountered one like him. "You are reckless," she said. "And yet, I see something in you. Something dangerous." Ethan smiled faintly, a dry, stubborn smile. "Humans are dangerous," he admitted. "Not because we are strong, or fast, or clever. We are dangerous because we refuse to be predictable. We refuse to surrender to certainty. We refuse to die quietly." The queen's glow dimmed slightly, and for a moment, the hall seemed to breathe with her. She took a step closer, her eyes locking onto his. "Do you understand what you have done, human? One choice could save you, could place you at my side, could let you live beyond anything your species could imagine. And you chose to face death." "Yes," Ethan said. "I choose it. I choose what I believe is right, not what is easy. Humans survive because we do not bow to fear. And I will not start now. The timer ticked closer to 0. 0:25. 25 seconds left. The palace seemed to pulse with anticipation. Guards beyond her throne shifted, but she did not command them. Her empire held its breath. Ethan felt fear, of course. Fear that any step could end him. Fear that his species, already weakened, could be erased from the stars. But above the fear, there was something stronger, a stubborn, unshakable will. A will that had carried humans through countless wars, through endless hardships, through impossible odds. "You may die," the queen whispered. Her voice was both a warning and an acknowledgement. "But if you do, I will have learned something I have never known. That one human can defy an empire." Ethan squared his shoulders. "Then learn," he said quietly. "Because I am not here to beg. I am here to stand." The timer ticked again. 0:03. 3 seconds. The hum of the chamber rose, the palace vibrating with anticipation, as if time itself had paused to watch this small, fragile human make his final choice. 0. Ethan waited. Nothing happened. No weapons fired. No traps fell. No chains wrapped around him. The air remained warm. The silence stretched. The queen's eyes widened slightly, the first visible crack in her centuries of control. Her guards shifted uneasily. For the first time in 10,000 years, the alien queen faced something she could not command. She walked toward him slowly, her presence immense, her light bathing him in silver. "You did not move," she said softly. "You did not run. You did not flee." Ethan met her gaze. "Because humans don't always run," he said. "Sometimes we stand, even when everything is impossible, even when it's hopeless. That is how we survive." Her glow dimmed further, almost thoughtful. Her empire had faced countless species, but this one human, weak, fragile, exhausted, had done something no one had done. He had chosen meaning over safety. For a long moment, the chamber was silent. The palace seemed to lean in closer, listening, understanding, learning. The queen had offered him life, power, safety, and he had refused. Not recklessly, not carelessly, intentionally, deliberately, humanly. And in that refusal, Ethan realized something. Survival was more than escaping. It was standing for something. Even if the cost was everything. The queen finally spoke again. "You are unlike anything I have ever faced. Perhaps humans are not the weak species I thought them to be." Ethan allowed himself a small, tired smile. He had faced the impossible. He had defied the ultimate power in the galaxy. And he was still standing, because he was human, because humans did not surrender, because sometimes the smallest species could make the greatest difference. The chamber was quiet now, but not peaceful. The air hummed with tension, as if every wall, every light, every pulse of the palace was holding its breath. Ethan's chest rose and fell with slow, steady breaths. His muscles ached. His hands were scraped and bleeding. His clothes clung to him with sweat. But he was alive, standing in the heart of the alien empire, facing its queen. The timer had reached 0, but nothing happened. No trap, no execution, no sudden death. Only the quiet hum of the palace and the glow of the queen, immense and alien. "Before him, you did not flee," she said softly. Her voice, usually as commanding as a supernova, sounded almost curious, almost human. "Even when everything promised you death, you chose to stay." Ethan met her gaze. "Because humans do not always run," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Sometimes we stand, even when the odds are impossible, even when the universe tells us to give up." The queen's guards shifted uneasily. They had never seen her pause, never seen her uncertain. She raised her hand, and the hum of their weapons stopped. The hall itself seemed to obey her. And yet, she did not act. "You are extraordinary," she admitted. "All my life I have ruled. I have conquered. I have extinguished countless worlds, and yet, you, a single human, have done what no species has ever done." Ethan's heart pounded, not with fear, but with understanding. He had survived tests of strength, endurance, and courage before. But this was different. This was a test of meaning, a test of choice. And he had made it clear. He valued life, but not a life bought with surrender. Not a life offered in chains or golden cages. The queen stepped closer, her presence overwhelming, yet she moved carefully, almost reverently. "You could still take my offer," she whispered. "You could live, safe and untouchable. You could learn the ways of my empire, gain knowledge, power, immortality beyond what any human could imagine. And yet, you refuse." Ethan straightened, shoulders back, a tired but stubborn light in his eyes. "I am human," he said. "Humans survive because we make choices, not because we take the easy path. We fight when everything says we should hide. We stand when everything says we should fall. That is who we are. That is why we survive." For the first time in millennia, the queen seemed to hesitate. Her glow softened. She had faced armies, rebellions, entire planets, and yet she could not command him, could not bend his mind, could not erase his will. "You understand nothing about fear," she said, almost to herself. "Yet somehow, you have mastered it." Ethan smiled faintly, a bitter, human smile. "Fear is not what kills us. Giving up does." The queen stepped back, considering him. The halls of the palace seemed to quiet even further, the lights dimming, the energy pulsing slower. Even the guards, weapons raised and ready to strike at any disobedience, froze. She had never faced such defiance. She had never seen a creature so small, so fragile, refuse the certainty of life itself to stand for something greater. "Your species is dangerous," she admitted finally. "Not because of strength, not because of skill, not because of fleets or weapons, but because you can defy the inevitable. Because even in the face of hopelessness, you choose meaning." Ethan's chest swelled. He felt the weight of history around him, the lives of billions lost, the stars burned by her empire, but also the stubborn pulse of humanity that refused to bend. Humans had survived extinction, war, disease, and betrayal. They had survived because they could choose hope over despair, courage over fear, and stand when everyone expected them to fall. The queen's voice softened further, almost as if she were confessing. "I offered you life, power, safety, and you refused it. You chose. What? Death? Risk? Weakness?" "No," Ethan said quietly, firmly. "I chose what is human. I chose to stand. I chose to be alive in spirit, even if my body falls. Humans survive not because we are strongest, but because we refuse to become what others expect us to be. That is our power." The palace seemed to hold its breath. Time slowed. Even the lights flickered, as if the universe itself was paying attention to a small, fragile human standing in defiance of an empire. And the queen, the ruler of 10,000 conquered worlds, finally understood something she had never faced before. Strength alone does not rule the universe. Will, choice, and courage, these are the true powers. She stepped aside, and for the first time, her tone was gentle. "Perhaps humans deserve a place in the stars after all." Ethan did not smile. He simply breathed, exhausted, but unbroken, because he was human, and humans did not survive by surrendering. They survived by standing when nothing else could. The chamber was silent, yet alive. Ethan's breathing echoed against walls that had held empires. The glow from the queen bathed him in silver light, but it was softer now, thoughtful. For the first time, she did not see him as prey, nor as a tool, nor as a simple human to be studied. She saw him as a choice, a defiance, a spark. "You have surprised me," she said slowly. Her voice carried weight, a mixture of awe, curiosity, and something almost like respect. "Your species is unpredictable. You face hopelessness, and yet you endure. You face certain death, and yet you stand. I do not understand it fully, yet I see its power." Ethan's hands were cut and bruised. His clothes were torn. His chest ached from exhaustion, and yet his mind was clearer than ever. He had survived fear, pain, and despair. Not because he was strong, not because he was clever, but because he had chosen to be human. The queen stepped closer. Her glow dimmed, and the hum of the palace slowed, almost reverent. "You could have accepted my offer," she said. "Wealth, power, immortality, a place at my side, and yet you refused. Why?" Ethan looked up at her. His voice was low, calm, but full of quiet conviction. "Because humans do not live for comfort. We do not survive by surrendering. We survive by standing for something greater than ourselves, even when it seems hopeless. That is what makes us dangerous." The queen regarded him for a long moment. The empire had crushed billions of lives, conquered countless worlds, and yet this single human had done what no army, no fleet, no weapon had ever done. He had changed her mind without force. He had reminded her that there were limits to even her understanding of the universe. "And what of your kind?" she asked finally. "Your species. Is it worth saving?" Ethan's gaze hardened. "Humans always find a way. We fall, we lose. We die, but we get up again. We survive because we choose meaning over fear, courage over comfort, hope over despair. That is what makes humans dangerous. That is what makes humans alive." The queen's expression shifted. Something inside her, ancient and unyielding, trembled. For the first time in 10,000 years, she hesitated. The offer she had given, life, power, safety, no longer seemed certain.